Welcome to Eggs, the podcast, featuring the best and brightest minds in business leadership, entrepreneurship, and technology. Today, we have Adam Rundle, founder of Clever Profits, a fractional CFO firm that helps entrepreneurs build profitable businesses. Adam left his corporate finance career to pursue his passion for helping online entrepreneurs. His then two-person team has grown to a team of more than 45 financial specialists, including an advisory division, serving clients from across agencies, coaching, consulting, and other online businesses. Adam is here to share his insights on how to profitably scale your business from 5 to 8 figures or more, help us understand the true expertise of fractional CFOs, and understand the role of advisors in building a disruptive fractional CFO business of your very own. He'll also share his leadership lessons on building engaging teams and thriving as a leader in a world of noise. Join us in welcoming to the show, Adam Rundle. Hey, Adam, how are you?
Ryan, good to be here. Thanks for having me. Michael, how are you? Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, thanks for making time for us. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Why don't you give us a brief overview of who you are, how you got into the business, and your work history?
Yeah, so I'm originally from South Africa. I'm sure you could probably hear by the accent. I currently live in the United States. Been here for 7 years now, almost going on 7.5. I studied accounting. I didn't really want to be an accountant. I actually wanted to coach rugby full time. Was the gig I wanted to do. But found my way into a law firm as kind of just like a financial manager at a law firm, and spent 6 years there. Eventually was kind of the financial director and about 140 people in Cape Town, South Africa. And kind of firsthand got to realize that, okay, what you learn in college is one thing, but real life applications are a little bit different in this financial world. And what are you actually trying to do? And what are you trying to achieve? And then got an opportunity to move to the States with my wife, and got connected to some incredible people here. People most of you would know. I'm sure most of you know Jasper.ai. And so the founders of Jasper, Dave, Chris, and JP, were actually my first ever client.
Nice.
Before Jasper existed, before it was Jasper, they were Entrepreneur Alliance back then, Pivot and Scale. They were just about launching their first SaaS company here in Annapolis. They were living here, and I started kind of helping them consult a little bit about finances. They connected to me a lot of people, really just wanted to be a consultant, just, wanted to kind of get my feet a little bit wet here. Coached rugby at the Naval Academy. Was trying to decide what my life's going to look like. And then it just really worked. It kind of kicked off and things were happening, and I realized I needed to build a bit of a team, get some more of the nuts and bolts around finances done, accounting and taxes, and more of the service element as opposed to consulting. And so I started building that, and now we're close on 50 people and got an office in South Africa, got an office, kind of pretty remote, our team in the US, got an office in Peru, and just having fun.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's awesome.
Well, it's very cool because it's funny to hear you talk about rugby. Obviously it's not the most popular sport here in the States, but out here I live in Utah, and here in Utah, rugby is actually very popular.
Very popular.
Yeah, we have a big Polynesian contingent here, and they sort of seem to lead the charge on that one. And it's funny, I'm actually really good friends with the daughter of a guy who's like maybe one of the most famous rugby coaches in America, this guy, Larry Gelwicks, that they made a movie called Forever Strong about. So it's kind of funny.
I'll tell you, this is my best story about rugby. Is I arrived here and started coaching at Naval Academy, and I stopped coaching last season because I've got 3 kids and trying to run a business. And Navy just won the national championship last week. Maybe the real gig is that I got to get out of the way. So maybe that's what I learned out of this whole thing. Just got to step aside.
That's funny.
Well, cool. So let's talk about, I think this concept of fractional positions is something that is becoming much more common, but for people who don't really understand what's going on with a fractional role, can we talk a little bit about, first of all, hiring somebody as a fractional resource, but also just like fractional CFO work in particular?
Yeah. I think it's an interesting topic. I think there's obviously a big need for it, and I'm also biased. I'm on a fractional CFO firm, so I'm not gonna say it's not needed, but so take my biasness into account. But the rationale is pretty simple. You want the expertise, but do you need them 24/7 or 40 hours a week full time, and is it worth the cost? And you got to kind of look at the roles that you want the expertise in, and assess whether that is a full-time gig or not, or whether 3, 4, 5 hours here or there of an expert in a particular role is all you need. And is it worth then just paying for that period of time as opposed for paying for a full-time seat on, in your team of people? And I think there's a lot of arguments where it does make sense. I think there's some arguments where it doesn't make sense. But especially when you're scaling, especially when you're at the point of, well, I need this, but I'm not at the point where I can necessarily afford it or I need it all the time. I think fractional is a great way to go. And it's a great bridge to go from, where I am to where I want to be. And how can I get there as quick as possible without, me necessarily trying to learn to do it as a business owner or piecemealing it with someone else in my team who's also trying to learn to do it, but get a true expert in, someone who actually understands what they're doing, leverage them, buy the skill, don't try to build it, buy the skill until you can full-time afford to hire the skill. So I think it's really needed. I think the CFO piece makes more sense to me because of the role. There are certain functions I feel that are very hard to justify from a full-time standpoint. And one of them is finances. Marketing can be one of them. One of them I don't necessarily, in theory, agree with is like operational. So I'm on the fence of like an operational fractional person, because I feel like operational people are too involved. Operations are real time all the time. Finances, you don't need to know what's happening in your finances every minute of the day. You need to know once a week. Yes, there may be a little bit more work that's required, but you need to pop around the corner and speak to the finance guy about things all the time. But operational things are happening all the time. Marketing things are happening more often. But I think there's still a time frame with marketing where you can go, hey, I don't need someone all the time. I just need someone for a couple of hours to do some key things. So I think it's all about identifying what is the purpose of the function, what are you trying to get out of it, and then whether fractional fits that need or not. But the industry as a whole around fractional, I think, is growing. I think as we're more remote, people are more remote. There's this understanding that, well, if my team's remote, who cares if I've got a fractional person that's remote? I'm not trying to build in-house anyway. So all of those are lending themselves, I think, to this world of fractional services.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think, it's sort of a shift in business culture, right? Because you mentioned marketing services specifically. I come from a marketing background, and for my industry or for people in this business, we're used to using, we just called them freelancers back in the day, but I mean, it's fractional help, right? These are people who come in and help out part-time or, on a specific project or whatever. So that, I think culturally, the concept of bringing in part-time help for those sorts of jobs has always been there, or has been there for a long time. But I think senior leadership was always something that was maybe a little bit more rigid, right? Like from a business culture standpoint, was like, we need to have a good foundation, a strong founding team, CEO, CTO, CFO, blah, blah, blah. And then, we'll figure out how to get the rest done. So I think it is a shift in business, or in the way the business is done. And I think you're right that the push to remote during COVID probably really expedited the process.
I think that leadership thing you mentioned is quite interesting, because it is like you kind of want to feel like your leaders are permanent, that they're permanent fixtures, because that builds stability. But I think the really good CEOs can navigate that. I think really good CEOs can say, well, my team maybe doesn't need a CFO, but I do. The role of a CFO may not impact, the other 25 people that work for me, but it severely impacts me. So how do I get that and get that insight and get that support without it having to be a permanent role that's then constantly interacting with my team? And I think, really good founders, really good CEOs that understand that, understand what's the support I'm looking for, and then what support that my business and the clients are looking for and my team are looking for, and navigating that. I think that plays a big role in structuring that leadership team, or whether that's, fractional people, not COOs, CMOs, CTOs, whatever they are. You want to structure those brains around you as a CEO. But how, I think, is changing quite rapidly. It doesn't have to be this permanentness that it used to be.
Can you tell us how the initial contact goes with the new client? What are you discussing? What type of documents are they providing to you? How long does it take to kind of get everything buttoned up and going smoothly?
So for us, because it's not a consulting gig, because it's a service gig. So for us, we want to provide a service. We want to either rebuild or recreate the accounting system in our client's world. So that changes the way we interact pretty intensely. If we're just looking to consult, it's like, hey, give us a P&L, give us a balance sheet, let's schedule a call, we'll get some discovery going, see what your blind spots are, I'll help you out. That's what it used to be like. We've morphed to the point of, if you want to work with us, we're going to start with a 2 to 3 week kind of rebuild, rehaul of your accounting system. So we're going to audit that. We want access to it, preferably QuickBooks or Xero, whatever it is. We're going to access that. We're going to audit it. We're going to identify what we like or don't like about it. And then we're going to change it. And that's the initial engagement always. It's like, let's get the system working so that we can access the data we want. And then you're collecting, supporting documents and all that, tax returns, bank statements if you want them, contracts with clients so we can understand how they're interacting, merchant things. Like, we just want to get insight to where the money is, where it's coming from, how you generating it, where's it going. And then our engagements move on to strategic pieces around building a plan, where you're trying to go. Let's build a forecast, let's build a budget, let's do some labor analysis, do some marketing analysis. Let's figure out like where you're trying to get to. And then a tax engagement of, hey, now that you're going to make X amount, do you have the right tax structure in place in order to maximize that? Yes or no? And then that's usually our 6 to 8 week initial engagement. And then we'll move on to ongoing services of, what do you need? You need bookkeeping, accounting, call here or there, some payroll, some HR, whatever it is.
Yeah. So a couple of questions are coming out of that, but the first one is maybe related to accounting and bookkeeping, for example. So a company like mine was built, basically I was a freelance designer myself. We scaled over time because I just got too busy. I got too many clients, whatever. So our company sort of grew out a little bit. To handle the financial needs in the early days, I did it myself. Eventually I got a bookkeeper. And then I got a CPA, sorry. And then I got a bookkeeper and a CPA. And, but unlike a traditional, I don't know, like a tech startup, for example, I mean, I don't have a founding team, right? So like I'm more CEO in name only because somebody has to lead the ship. But like, because of the way that my business was organized or the way that we grew, I'm more or less detached from the finances, right? I just kind of hand it off to the bookkeepers and they make sure I don't get into too much trouble. And so if if somebody with a company like mine that was trying to make a transition or trying to scale was ready to sort of turn the corner financially, like there's an engagement with somebody like you, do we end up bringing those services in-house? Do those in-house, so to speak, through the fractional relationship? Or do we continue to use outside groups like that and we're just using the CFO as an advisor? Like, I guess I'm just trying to understand what the relationship would look like.
It's a good question. We don't, 95% is all in-house for us. So we're coming in and saying, we're your financial team. We're going to plug in all the pieces you need to get this done. So you don't need a bookkeeper anymore. You don't need a CPA. You don't need anyone on the financial side. We're going to come in and we're going to cover all those resources, part of our engagement. Where that sometimes falls apart is some financial ops roles, billing, collections, commission structures. There's certain what we call financial ops. So yes, they're financial, but they also have a very high operational function as opposed to technical finance. Those we usually try and get people, if they're a function that they need fully, we usually try and get our clients to do that themselves, because I mentioned earlier, operations is hard to fractionalize because it's real time. It's happening all the time. So those roles we prefer for someone to have in-house, and we'll work with them. But by and large, we're doing everything. And we're your full house, we're your full team. You've got a number of people on our team with an account manager working with you in the different areas, getting them done. And what you said is you as you went from yourself and you went to CPA and then to bookkeeper, that part where you go from CPA to bookkeeper, that's where we would come in and say, okay, now instead of you having CPA and bookkeeper, two separate things, let's do them together and create a bridge between you and that. What we don't want is for you to go, well, that's happening, and I may see a P&L once every now and then I get a conversation at the end of the year for my taxes. We want to increase the cadence of that. We want to have that conversation more often with you. We want to give you more insight, yet we still need the jobs to be done. So we would then come in that point and say, instead of you having two, have one, and let's build a bridge between you and us in terms of as the owner. And that's our sweet spot. That's where I feel like have the greatest impact, is if you're just looking to outsource this and say, like, I don't want to think about it, we're not the best fit for you, because there's much cheaper options than us to go and run your books and send it to your CPA once a year, and you have a conversation, you file your taxes. We want to have conversations. We want to talk. We want to be on a call once a month. We want to be on a call once a week if possible at times, depending on the client size, because our goal is CFO. It's not just bookkeeping. And so, yes, we come with those, but the goal is CFO.
Right. Yeah, no, it just makes me think, because, there's for sure some detachment between my outsourced people, for example. So, and I'm just sharing my experience because I assume that this may be a common one for other people. But,
it's a common thing. And those are normal steps, you do it yourself, or you're not doing it yourself. And then you realize, sheepish, I got to get it done. And then you start to figure out, well, how do I do it? And then you go, and there's no wrong or answer. What you did is normal and it's perfectly fine. It's just, you just got to look and say, well, what do I need? And where do I kind of piece these things together? And the hard part is when, yes, it's sometimes cheaper to go like, oh, I'm going to get this person for a couple of hours to do this, and this person a couple of hours to do this person a couple of hours to do this. But if you're the one that's got to knit it all together, that's where the cost effectiveness comes in. We say, well, it's sometimes better to go to a digital marketing agency who's going to run your ads for you, sort out your landing page, got a copywriter on team. That's easier than me going, okay, well, I'm going to go get a copywriter. I'm going to go get a landing page specialist. I'm going to go get a media buyer, because now I've got to knit them together. And unless that's your expertise, that's what you want to avoid.
Yeah. And I guess that's sort of what I was going to lean into, right? Was that there's this detachment between me, my bookkeeper, and my CPA. There are 3 different companies, myself and the 2 others. They, interact once or twice a year when they're sending documents back and forth, and that's kind of it. And then, like, in terms of my relationship to the money, like I say, I just kind of go spend it, and then the bookkeepers make sure it gets categorized and all that stuff. But I don't put any other thought to it, right? I'm not, I don't have somebody in my ear saying, hey, bud, you got to slow down on the expenses this month, or, hey, we're not making enough this month. Or so is there an extra layer of integration with somebody who's acting as a fractional CFO to sort of help course correct for the small entrepreneur that's maybe not that good at this stuff, and really just kind of a tactician, or somebody who's good at their trade, but not at the finance part?
That's the offer. That's ultimately what we do. Is every single one of our clients is an account manager, and the role of an account manager, they're different. You get lower end clients who are on smaller engagements, and it's a Slack channel, Loom calls with a monthly report and a Loom breakdown of that report, to our top end clients that have 2-3 calls a week, one with an ops person, one with an internal payroll person, one with the owner. It can range, but the foundation is communication with the owner about finances. It's what the foundation is. And what we want to do is constantly say, the more you're aware of it, the more you can manage it. So our argument is, if you don't know what's happening, you can't make a difference. So when we tell you what's happening, we want to help you make a difference. We want to help you know, well, I can improve this. Something that's really good, I can make it better. Something that's not good, I can improve. And we want to have as high cadence of that as possible. We don't want it to be overwhelming like every day, because no, that's overwhelming. But at least once a month, you want to know what's going on and you want to get insight. And the way we've done that is we developed a thing called the Perfect P&L. Profit First and Simple Numbers, Big Profits are 2 big books I read. My analogy is they had a baby, and Perfect P&L came out of it. Very mindset driven. Mike McCullough's Profit First. Greg Crabtree wrote Simple Numbers, Big Profits. Very tactical, very accounting-esque. It's actually quite a hard book to read, I think, and I'm an accountant, because it's so technical. And I went like, I struggle to grasp all of this all the time. I had to reread lots of it. Mike's book, Profit First, incredible, but very mindset. Like, it's not necessarily like X's and O's. You don't really have a playbook. You just have an idea. And then we said, okay, well, how do we bridge the gap of those two? And we developed the Perfect P&L. And basically what it is, let's figure out what this thing should look like in perfection. So if you want to make 100 grand a month, what should your profit margin be? How much should you be spending on acquisition? How much should you be spending on labor? How much spending on overheads? What should that look like? That's your yardstick. Now let's measure everything against that. So whenever we measure it, we now know, oh, you overspent or underspent or this or that. And now we immediately know that's a focal area. Now we can have conversations to figure out how to solve that. Your finances aren't going to tell you necessarily how to solve it. Like, I'm not going to tell you how to do marketing, but I'm going to be able to say, hey, your marketing is too high or too low, or you're good profit margin, but marketing is so low, opportunity cost, maybe we're losing out. That's what we're trying to elicit, is those areas of conversation. We're saying, well, how does it get better, or how do we improve it, so that we can have a conversation about improving it. So it's not just an afterthought. Oh, well, if only I knew. If I knew 4 months ago that my marketing costs were rising by 10% every single month, I could have made a difference. No, well, let's know right now so we can make a difference right now.
Right. Yeah, no, and I just wanted to pile on, and Mike, sorry for bogarting all the questions here, but obviously this is a sensitive subject for me, or an interesting subject for me. I just wanted to ask too then, so what does the engagement look like? I mean, you mentioned, or we sort of mentioned at the top of the show, that you help companies, from 5 figures to 8 figures, right? So, I mean, a 5-figure company indicates to me that these are small businesses, and that you guys have room in your range for a smaller company. Who is a good pick for you guys? And then, like, what does the engagement look like in terms of getting started? Like, I mean, how would you look at the cost, for example? Like, I mean, and not to get into like price necessarily, but
yeah.
I mean, I'm paying 2 different companies right now to do it. So, like, is it ostensibly the same to engage with somebody like you?
Yeah, I'll give it a breakdown. So our low end is 40 to 50 grand a month. Is probably the bottom end of the scale. Our biggest client is 90 million a year. Now, they're a very interesting client. They should technically not be a client of ours. Our model is, when you get into about 12, 13, 14 million a year, we shouldn't be maybe we could do some tax work for you. Maybe we could do some advisory work, so like deal advisory, but you should have these things in-house. Now, our biggest client just doesn't want to do it. Not interested. They've been around for 4 years. Great relationship, but a different story. Our average is probably, I may be lying here, but let's say 4 million a year is the average client size that we have. And they have, say, 12 people in their business, whether W-2 or 1099. So even if you're at 50 grand a month and you 3 people, we may be a good option for you to start building foundations and say, hey, let's put the right foundation in. Let's put the right financial system in. Let's get you a plan. Let's get you a good tax structure. And then the monthly engagement would be between $1,000, $1,500 a month, where we're coming in, doing all the bookkeeping, all the accounting, taxes are included, and you have access to a CFO to talk about performance and something like that. That's kind of what that lower end looks like. The average is probably closer to 3,500 to 4 grand a month, where you're doing all of that, but just higher cadence of calls. We maybe added a payroll management onto that, some other little pieces. And then the top end engagements are 10, 15, 20 grand. And they're looking at all of those things as well, but full on payroll management. So we like managing the entire payroll function. Got some HR consulting work being done there. There's 4 calls a month, call every week, if not maybe more, depending on who we're meeting with. So it's just a lot more in-depth engagement. So that's kind of what the band looks like. But our argument is, if you're around the 30, 40 grand, the least you can do is put a good system in place. It can be a one-time engagement with us. We just come in and we build the system and get it up and running, and you can go pay a bookkeeper to manage it. But just having a good system, and we all know this, is helpful. It's just, any good system is helpful to future growth. And so our argument is always, you don't have to always work with us. Like, it's not like, oh, you come in and sign on and you sign your life away. All our engagements are month to month. You can come and go as you please. We don't really care. We can build a good system for you, and you can go and do it yourself, or we can manage all of it. It just really depends on what you need.
I like that. I'm kind of curious, is there a perfect client for you? You've worked in tech, you've worked in a bunch of different fields. Are you, say, for example, I'm in real estate or in another demographic, is there certain ones that you guys kind of avoid?
Yeah, there's a lot we avoid.
Okay.
Look, we're purely online. Well, not purely. I'm going to lie to you because we're actually building something else, but I'll get to that in a second. Online based. Traditionally, our biggest clientele is digital marketing agencies. That's our biggest segment. Very closely followed by, consultants and coaches, and then course creators. So those kind of 4 make up probably 85% of our clients. Now we have some software companies. We've got some other types of companies that are in and around that world. but that's not our bread and butter. Our bread and butter is very much so online digital marketing agencies, course creators, coaches, consultants. Like that's our world. The accounting process is relatively simple. It's not very complicated, and that's our focal area. The one thing we are doing, and we learned this probably throughout last year, was there was a time COVID hit, a lot of money pumped into the economy, and it was kind of a free for all. If you go on social media now, a lot of people joke around, who the EIDL entrepreneurs, like who got some money from the government and then had a business for a while and then disappeared. And there is an instability, I would say, to that industry. The digital marketing course creator industry, there's some instability to it, just because of the ease of in and the ease of out. So it's relatively easy for anyone to get into it, and it's relatively easy to get out of it. And yes, there's some incredible people in it, but there's a lot of tire kickers in it. And so it's a pretty unstable, the stability isn't high in that market. And what we realize is that for us, now we're at almost 50 people, stability becomes such an important thing for us. Yeah, there was a phase 18 to 24 months ago where we just wanted to grow as fast as we can. And so we would do anything to grow. End of last year, we're going, okay, great, you can grow, but we've got a big payroll. We've got to keep people happy. We need some more stability. And what we identified is that we wanted to build into a more stable industry. And we identified the medical space as that industry, and the lower end of the medical space, chiropractors, PTs, med spas. And we realized that we would love to build a bit better foundation there. Very similar business models. They can plug and play. They service based still, even though they have a physical presence, which adds stability. Because it's a medical space, the barrier to entry is higher. You got to go to med school. You got to go to a chiropractic school to start a chiropractic office. You become a chiropractor. You rack up all this money to do it. So you're a lot more invested into it. You put a lot more effort into wanting to make that business work, which we found is a nicer engagement for us. And so then we got a much lower tier offer, bookkeeping and accounting only. Right now, there's a couple of those clients we have that we do more strategic things, but we built a division that's purely based around kind of bookkeeping and accounting and taxes for the Cairo space in particular. And PT we've got as well. We've got some med spas, but Cairo in particular. And so that's the only difference, is we realized we need to do that. So we built that division to try and diversify a little bit and build some stability. But to answer your actual question, our traditional, who we are, what we're known for is digital marketing agencies, coaches, consultants.
Yeah, I was curious because, being based out of South Africa and having an office in Peru, I'm sure there's a lot of legalese hoops you have to jump through going from country to country and working within the US, working within South Africa, working in Peru.
So for us, it's easy though, because, we've got 20 odd people in the US. And all our work is US based. So all our account managers, all of our tax people, they're all US. Our South African team is just back end support. So you go talk to any accounting firm out there, they've all got an office in India or something like that, where they're doing offshore work, fraction of the cost, speed of the work is better. It's done before time, and time zones help. So when we were faced with this growth perspective, saying like, well, we need to offshore some work. We need to get it done a little bit cheaper. We need to get it done beforehand. And it's, it's bookkeeping, it's manual work. It's not client interaction. We chose South Africa. Obviously, I'm South African. It was so much easier for me. It's, ticks all those boxes. And then we built a Peru office to do administrative support. We wanted that to be same time zone or similar time zone. So again, not client facing, but more administrative support. So I was talking about financial ops roles, ARs, APs, payrolls. They more operational, but they're financial. That's housed in Peru for us. The tasks are housed in Peru, but all the managers are here in the US. So we've, I think, got a good balance of trying to manage those things. But yeah, I mean, that was a challenge. Is like, how do you put them all together? And then how do you knit them together? And then how do you create a team of people that's one sitting here, one sitting there, one sitting there? That's been the fun part. That's the jigsaw puzzle of being a business owner.
I like how you identified your perfect client and then built a whole department around the chiropractors. And your reasoning and logic behind that is very sound.
So we hope, touch wood. We'll let you know in a couple of years.
Well, it makes sense, because if they've jumped through the hoops to become a chiropractor or a physical therapist, they're not going to just uproot and go and do lawn care. It's like they're pretty stable, and identifying that and pivoting for that, I think, is very sensible and smart.
And we could only do it. We could only do it because we had built all the other stuff already. Like I was trying to think, like, could we have done this, 5 years ago when things were starting to really work? I don't think we would have even been able to do it. But when you have a team in South Africa, so you've got this talent pool, and you're going, okay, I just need to just go hire 2 more of these people to do this thing, it made it a lot easier. So the type of scale, it becomes possible once you've done other things. So I'm very aware of that. It's not just I think we had to go through the hoops of what we built and the complexity of what we built in what we have built to enable the simplicity of, some of these ancillary services or industries that we can work in.
Yeah. Well, it also gives you a target to shoot for as well for acquiring new clients. You could essentially just Google chiropractors in Seattle and then hit them all up, because you've got the reputation.
My marketing people, not that we do a lot of marketing, but they say it's a lot easier than randomly finding digital marketing agencies out there in the ether. It's like chiropractors are quite easy to find.
Yeah.
So I wonder if we couldn't talk a little bit about, as you mentioned, scaling. One of the things I think you guys do is sort of support your clients by helping them through, scaling their business and sort of overcoming business challenges. And I assume that this is somewhat the role of that CFO, right? This fractional person who's in there giving advice. But how involved are you in actively scaling your clients?
Yeah, I mean, we're accountants, and we don't try and portray it to be anything else. I think some of the first things we always say to people: we're not salespeople, we're not marketers, we're not ops, we're not going to hire people for you, and we don't try and get involved in those nitty gritties. Our role ultimately is identification. So identify areas that we need to be thinking about, and then facilitating conversations of how to navigate them. And where I feel like what we do has the value is that we can't do what we do without full insight. So you can't look at someone's finances and manage their finances and prepare P&Ls and balance sheets and cash flow reports and performance reports without knowing what's going on. It's not possible. Okay, so you got to understand, where does everything fit? What's marketing? What's sales? What's fulfillment? All that kind of stuff. So what we found is, especially when owners don't have a lot of leaders around them, they may have themselves and an operator, or themselves and a really good marketer. We are a really good voice at the table, not because we're necessarily experts at all the stuff. It's just because we have that full insight. Because they can sit down with their digital marketing agency and say, hey, I want to scale. That digital marketing agency can be brilliant, and they can have brilliant minds. They can be really strategic, but they don't always know what's going on, because their insight is, they just know what they're told. They're not seeing all the fulfillment issues or the cash flow issues, or they're seeing, all those different things. Because we have that insight, I think that's where we're the most valuable, not because we're the cleverest, not because we're got the expertise necessarily. I think it's the insight. And then coupled with that, it's because we work with a vast majority, a large number of clients. So we have a very big client base. So we've seen things. We've seen what other people are doing. And we do spend a lot of time. It's something we do spend quite a lot of time internally, is account managers meeting with each other to talk to each other. Like, hey, so-and-so went from here to there. What did they do? Or this person hired this type of person, or they brought this digital marketing agency on because they were trying to do this. And so where I think we assist is identification. Hey, where are areas? Because we see it. We help with conversations because we see it all. So we help facilitate, well, you think we must do this, but the operator thinks we must do this, and the marketing person thinks we must do this. Let us help navigate this conversation because we have maybe a better perspective of everything. And then the last thing is industry insights, just knowing what other people are doing. And ultimately, I think we're just trying to push people towards a decision. Like, hey, do you feel strongly that you need to change your offer from, $429 to $5.99. Why? Whatever. Some facetious. You feel strongly. Okay. Why? Yes. Why? This person says this. Oh, yeah, that makes sense to us. We've seen that work. Great. Let's go do it. That's ultimately the support function.
Okay. Yeah, no, I really like that because, you mentioned something specifically that resonated with me, which is that for a lot of entrepreneurs, especially people with small businesses or people who are, maybe trying to build a business out of their trade, they don't have a lot of leadership around them, to your point, right? They're not surrounded by this founding team of people who founded and exited and done all this stuff, right? I mean, and I know even in my own business and even today, after 20 years in business, I've always felt like our weak spot was like the business of business, right? We're creative driven. We're run by a bunch of creative people. We have a creative team. We're all great designers and all that stuff, but none of us are finance majors. None of us, so it's like, I've always felt like that was our weak spot, right? Was not having that knowledge. So having a partner like that can really step in and fill that role, even if it is a little bit out of band, you're just giving advice based on your experience or whatever, not necessarily claiming to know how to run a marketing agency. I think that is incredibly useful, even just to have sort of another ear to bounce stuff off of,
That last part is the part that I feel is the most important. Is often what you find is you have a problem, so you can go find someone to help you solve that problem. There are people out there. There's specialists that really good marketers, really good ops people, really good thing. And we may be in a mastermind, you may be on a training call, you may watch a webinar, you may do all those things that you're picking up these ideas. Those are the nuggets. Those are the expert nuggets. We're not going to be there to dispute them. We're going to be there to help you interpret them and say, okay, so you've got this idea that you've sat with someone, they've told you, they may know everything there is about sales or offer creation, but they don't really know your business. They only know what you've told them. You've got this nugget. We're going to say, does that make sense? And in the coaching world, I'll never forget this. When I was coaching rugby, I was in New Zealand actually, and anyway, long story, but I was in New Zealand and this guy said, can you get the plane to land? And what he meant was, you can go watch, and let's say you're coaching, I was coaching college kids, okay? So you can go watch the best rugby players in the world. Go watch the NFL, go watch Patrick Mahomes, and you go watch the Kansas City Chiefs have a play, and they do what do they do, and that pulls it off, and you go, oh, wow, that's exciting. Like, I want to do that. Your next question needs to be, can I get the plane to land? So can I actually get that to happen? Do I have someone who can throw the ball like that? Do I have an offensive line that can set it up? Do I have a wide receiver? And whatever it is, I'm not saying I know a lot about football, but it's, can I get the plane to land? Like, that's obviously it works. I've seen it work, but can I get the plane to land? And I learned that in sport was that one of the hardest things as a coach is that you got all these great ideas. You're seeing it all. You're watching these things. You got your brain is filled with ideas and this play, that play, let's do this. Can you get it to land? Can you articulate that to your team? And they go, yes, we can do that. Do they have the skill level? Do they have a talent level? All those different things. I think it's exactly like a business owner. We're inundated. Just go spend 10 minutes on Facebook. You'll get 500 ideas of what people are doing. The real value is, can I get the plane to land? Is that applicable to me? Can I do it? Can I get it? Can I execute it? Do I have the people to execute it? Is it realistic? Yes or no? And I would like to believe we help a lot with that. With that interpretation phrase of, hey, is this real, bro? Like, can you actually make this happen?
Well, and I think that's a really great way of looking at it, because I think a lot of, especially young entrepreneurs, just kind of go headlong into stuff, right? I love this. I'm going to chase it. I'm going to go do it. And so, they're already in the air, so to speak, to stick with the metaphor. They're already in the air, but, how do we get down? Like, we've already got on the plane, but now how do we land this thing?
Yeah.
And so, so I think that's a really good point. And I also think, just to this idea of having somebody to bounce ideas off of, having somebody there to tell you that's a bad idea is a good suggestion, is a good thing too, because I think for the solopreneur, for the, single operator with just a small team or something, a lot of times it's really easy for their small group of people to just say, oh yeah, no, that sounds awesome. Let's do it. Or, or you as the leader go, you know what, this is what I want. It's my vision. This is what I should do. And having somebody, I think, in sort of that role, who's a little on the outside, who can just sort of objectively look at it and go, are you sure? Like, is this really what you want to do? And here's 5 reasons why that may or may not work, but, consider these options, I think is incredibly valuable, especially for somebody with a small team.
Yeah, I think so too. And just, asking questions that aren't asked, you can get excited. We're excitable human beings. Human beings are excitable. And we back ourselves. So you hear something, it's good. You start to reminisce, like think about it. You go, oh, that's going to work. It's going to work. It's going to work. Most entrepreneurs are highly positive. They're highly motivated. They don't say no very often. They'll think about the good outcome as opposed to a potential bad outcome long before, mostly those are natural traits of good entrepreneurs. So, when you're a boring accountant, like we always joke that we're just accountants. It's like, that's our job. Our job is to just be a little bit real and to kind of ask the questions you didn't want to ask and to say, hey, slow down a little bit. And not everyone likes it, but it's needed. I mean, we've all, if you've ever been married in life, and I know we have 3 dudes here, so I don't want to be sexist about it, but like, getting married is like one of the greatest levelers in my life. Like, it tamed me. It calmed me down. It forced me to think more. It forced me to go, oh, it's not just me. I can't just do this thing I want to do. It forced me to slow down. It forced all those different things. And then having kids did that on steroids. And so it's like, those are good things. Those are just naturally good things in life, is to have those counterbalances.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I mean, I can't tell you how many little businesses, both Mike and I, have just like fired off, and in my case, I've gotten all the way to a product, and then like, oh, maybe I should check the market research and see if anybody even wants this thing, or, well, I don't own the trademark on this, but I went ahead and made a whole business around it, or whatever, I mean, there's so many of those things that just is sort of a creative person, an entrepreneur person, and a person who is capable of going from ideation to, physical product in, the stretch of, a week. In fact, at one point I was going to write a book about how to start a business over the weekend, because I had done this little exercise a few times where I was just launching businesses, and it's like, but none of those had an end game. None of those had much anything. It was just passion.
It's still not a bad thing though. I mean, I still wouldn't discredit all of it. Like sometimes that's what you need though. Sometimes it's that little bit of spur of inspiration that gets juices going.
Well, and what I found is that I really like the starting part, but to your point about landing, that landing thing is a real challenge.
Yeah, but there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there like that. I think it's indicative of the entrepreneur landscape, is a lot of starters. And I don't think it's a bad thing. I'm not saying that in a negative way at all. Nothing landed that didn't start. So, I remember, so I keep using these sporting analogies, but when I was in New Zealand, they were so interesting. The way they were thinking about rugby is, so often people talk about conversion in sport. So how many times did you convert? So did you, how many times you get into the end zone and did you convert? So the metric is about conversion. Oh, we converted 8 out of 12 times or 8 out of 20 times, whatever it is. Where they were saying, we worry less about the conversion. How many times did you put yourself in the position to convert? So they were saying, no. Let's rather celebrate putting ourselves in a position to convert. And then we can work hard on the conversion on the back end. And it was a great little way to think a little bit differently about the same problem, and saying, well, if, especially in a team, like in a sports team, you're so hard on, hey, you didn't score that touchdown. Well, we just ran the ball up the entire field. We just, converted 3 third downs on, we converted a 4th down because we had 4th and 1. So are we going to discredit all of that because we didn't punch it over the line? It's like this thought of like, well, that was also valuable. So let's like make sure there's value across the chain. And so I think it's normal in businesses. And I think that's what makes entrepreneurs great. That's what makes entrepreneurship great, is there's a bunch of starters. We should all try convert more. But if we're only worried about conversion, then that's boring. So I love the ideation. I'm a massive starter. I've got ideas all the time. And I think that's great. I think it's just, let's find a way to convert more. But let's not kill the ideation. Let's not kill the idea. Like, I think you should have written that book. Like, I think that book would have done well, regardless of anything else. I think those are good things. We should celebrate them.
Well, I see someone like in your position as like a compass almost, like you're looking at the map, you're looking at the direction you need to go and making course corrections. You say, for example, let's stay with the flying analogy. Say, for example, I'm flying from Seattle to Cape Town. If I'm 2 degrees off, that equates to 5,000 miles apart, out of the way. And so, give or take, I
know what you mean. Yeah.
Shut out there, but like having someone that can look at your P&L and read the map and say, hey, we need to make adjustments here. We need to do this, and give good feedback to the person who might not be number savvy or even know what a P&L is. that's critical for someone to land.
100%. And that's the aim. That's the aim of what we do. And some people are still clients, so hopefully we're doing a decent job.
Yeah. Well, we're kind of getting to that time frame. Do you want to tell people where they can reach out, how they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, thanks, guys. I appreciate that. It's really simple. Adam Rundle. Facebook's always the easiest one. LinkedIn's a great one. There's no real firewalls. You just say what's up and how you doing, and tell me you like rugby, and maybe we talk for a little while and then figure out about the rest of it. cleverprofits.com, relatively simple. You can schedule time to chat to us there. We are, it's not cliche, but we're not going anywhere. We're not we're not, trying to, there's no urgency, we're around. So if you feel like, hey, I want to find out more, I want to know a little bit more, I want to find out if I'm doing the right thing, by all means, just reach out. We'd love to have a conversation. And if we're a good fit, and if we're not, we're not. That's also fine. I mean, we can't service everyone, but we'll certainly try and help those we can.
Yeah, that's great. And we'll be sure to share all that stuff in the notes. So thanks so much, Adam. We really appreciate your time. This has been awesome. Lots of great insights, and we appreciate you.
And I love your show, guys. Thanks for having me. Appreciate meeting both of you. And thanks for everyone for listening.
Absolutely. And thanks so much to everybody who tunes into the show this week and every week. And we'll see you guys next time.